Hey everyone, this is a quick improvised reaction video to the amazing news that we have a new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. And like most of you, I was watching it from home restlessly with some of my kids. This is the first time they've been able to watch this kind of a historic event as Catholics. But we were also going to the March for Life, which was held in my province, Alberta, here today at the Capitol. So we were kind of rushing out the door, but also trying to catch everything that was happening. So it was all a bit overly excited and rushed, but we were able to watch him at least greet the crowd quickly, and then we had to run out. But I thought I would share a few of my thoughts and a quick reaction to the news and what I think it means for the church. So the first thing I thought I would share really quick is just my own reaction to listening to the announcement before he comes out on the loggia. They gave the announcement of who was chosen and what his papal name was going to be, and I was anticipating who it was going to be and trying to follow the Latin a little bit, and I was translating it for my kids as they were listening. And then when they started to say his name, they said Robert, and I thought, wait a second, the only Robert I know is Cardinal Sarah, and I had excluded him. I had written him off. I thought there's no way they're going to go with him, and so I kind of lost my breath in that moment. I was like, wait a second. And then they continued to say the rest of his name, which I was anticipating hearing Sarah, but then it wasn't Sarah, and so I didn't really hear who it was, and I was a little bit confused and flustered in that moment. And so I was just kind of stunned until the announcers came back on and said it was Robert Prevost, who was an American bishop or an American cardinal, which I got to admit I was completely gobsmacked by. And then they announced that his name that he had taken is Leo XIV, which I never would have guessed that was going to be a name chosen by anybody at this point. So for me, it was surprises all around. And so now that we know who the man is, everyone has a reaction. Everyone's going through his past statements and his record and his governance and his roles. And was he aligned with Francis? Was he aligned with other people? And everybody has a take. My approach to this question is, this for me is a reset, because there are certain graces that come with the See of Peter that have never been accessible to him before. There are also certain protections available to him by the Holy Spirit to prevent him from teaching error in a particular way. And so my take on this is to give the absolute benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be anticipating certain things. I'm not going to be hostile. I'm not going to greet him with the kind of jubilation that maybe people who wanted certain people to be elected would, because he aligns with them politically or theologically or otherwise. I'm going to give him complete benefit of the doubt as the new pope. For me, he's Pope Leo XIV with no record. Maybe some people will think that that's naive, but I really believe that the Holy Spirit can do amazing things with insufficient instruments, and that this will be a turning point for him in his life for good, hopefully. That doesn't guarantee that we don't get bad popes. He could be a bad pope. He could be a good pope, but I'm not going to assume the worst going into it, because I just don't think that that's helpful for me or for anybody else in the church. Some of the things I really liked, just based on a first impression of the man, was the way that he came out and greeted the crowd in St. Peter's Square. So he came out fully vested in a traditional way, the same way that Pope Benedict was and the same way that Pope John Paul II was. Francis chose not to wear those vestments. And I was impressed by Pope Leo XIV's decision to submit to this tradition. I think that that's a sign of humility. When you enter into a tradition that is way, way bigger than you and goes so far back and has been embraced by saints, no less, for you to go there and say, I'm not doing that, I'm going to do things my own way, to me, that's not an indication of humility. That's an indication of pride. And I think that as Benedict had taught in the past, that you have to really lose your identity as a churchman, as a priest, as a bishop, and especially as the Pope. You are no longer your own man. You are Christ's man. You are his vicar. You should be, as much as possible, representing him and representing that office. So the fact that he came out, he was vested appropriately, he read from the script. I mean, he deviated here and there, and I think that that's okay. But he he kind of followed the norms for the most part, probably more than a lot of cardinals would have in this age of novelty that we live in. And to me, that suggests humility and a willingness to embrace some of the burdens, frankly, that come along with this office in which you lose your personal identity as Peter's successor. I think it's incredible that they chose an American. I was refraining from making any sort of predictions about who it would be, but the one prediction I did at least admit to myself, I didn't say this out loud, but I did communicate it to myself concretely, as in, like, yes, I think this will be the case. I thought that the conclave was going to take a long time. My impression was that, first of all, most of these cardinals don't know each other, and the factions are probably heavily divided at this point in the church, especially if it's any indication of what things are like in the rest of the church. In my experience of someone who's heavily invested in the church, among people that I used to just find a lot of common ground with, over the past decade or so, it feels like it's much, much harder to do that with everybody. Everybody has sort of lined up in polarizing stances on various things. And so it feels like the church, in certain respects, is very, very divided. And I kind of expected that the cardinals would be as well. So the fact that they elected somebody so quickly, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to interpret that. But obviously, the cardinals saw eye to eye on a lot more than I thought that they would. So that's my first hot take, quick reaction, first impression. And I guess the thing I would want to encourage you to do is to likewise give him as much benefit of the doubt. Don't assume anything. Don't think you've got the measure of the man before he starts acting in a governance role within the church. And I hope we can learn lessons from the past as faithful subjects of the Holy Catholic Church, and try to be measured in our obligations to obedience, both to him, but first to Christ. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope it's okay if I just switch gears here for a second, because it's no secret that big tech companies tend to support causes that are antithetical to life and the family, and yet we find it nearly impossible not to use their products and services. So if you're gonna own one of these things, why not support a carrier that is committed to the cause of life in the family? Which is why I support Charity Mobile, who sends 5% of your monthly plan price to a charity that supports the causes of life in the family. They've been offering solid peace of mind services for nearly 30 years and have never raised plan prices. All their plans start under $50 before taxes and surcharges, including their unlimited plan. So if you're interested in that, visit their website to get a transparent estimate of your monthly bill. And if you use promo code Brian, you'll get a free phone with free activation and free shipping. Just visit charitymobile.com/Brian.